everyone, so welcome to the fifth part of Papercraft Basics. So this time we're going to be going through different card sizes and also different paper weights as well. Now this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but I thought I'd just go through some of the most popular sizes and weights and kind of their uses, what you'd use that particular weight of card for, etc. Stuff like that. So yes, we'll start off with card sizes. Okay, so I've got a variety of card blanks here. Now when I say card blanks, what I mean is a greeting card that's already been folded. So some people get confused when I say card blanks. Sometimes I'll say, oh, you need a card blank that's 5x7, and they produce a piece of card that's 5x7. No, a card blank is actually 5x7 when it's folded, and when it's open it would then be 7x10. Okay, so just if I ever mention card blanks, that's what I mean. So we'll start off with this one, which is one that we don't really use in the UK. Some people do, but it's generally it's not really a UK size. And this is a USA A2 card. Okay, and so this, when folded, measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Okay, so obviously opened up, it would measure 5 1/2 inches by 8 1/2 inches. So that is a US, what they would call an A2 card. Now in the UK, if you mention the word A2, A2 is big. So an A2 piece of paper is massive. So an A2 is basically, if you take an A4, add another one next to it, and then take that whole thing and duplicate it again, that's A2. So yeah, it's big. So USA, this is like your standard A2 card size, I believe. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments, because as I said, I don't use this card size. I thought this card was 4 1/2 by 5 1/2. I thought that's what the size was. I know Australia have a different size as well, but I'm not sure what size Australia have. So if you're from Australia and you do A2 cards, what size are your standard cards? So that is the first one. Now the next one I want to mention, which is very similar, so it's a little bit taller and it's a little bit slimmer. So it's taller and slimmer, is what we would call an A6 card. So this is like a UK A6. So folded up, this measures about 4 1/8 by about 5 3/4. Okay, and so basically an A6 is, if I open this up, that would be an A5 piece of paper. And if you did another one on top here, so if you literally mirror image that, that would be A4. Okay, so this is like an A5. So, and I will come to, in fact, have I got, no, I haven't got an A5 card blank, but an A5 card blank would be that size on the front. So A5 card blank measured, folded, would be 5 3/4 by 8 1/4. And so A6 is literally an A5 piece of card folded in half to make an A6 card blank. And if you had an A6 card, actual piece of card, it would be this size. And this is the A6 card blank. So that is in the UK. Now, staying with rectangular cards, let us go for this one next. So this is the one that you see me make all the time. This is a 5x7. And so obviously when it's opened up, it's 7 inches by 10 inches. And so this, as you can see, is quite a bit bigger in, size to the others. But this, compared to an A5 card, so if I open this up, so if you can see, an A5 is not that much. I mean, it is height-wise, but width-wise, it's not that much difference. You've literally only got 3/4 of an inch extra on the width, and the height, you've got 1 1/4 inches. So it is bigger, but obviously whenever I make 5x7 cards and you want them sized up to A5, just bear in mind that quite often there's not, depending on the card, but quite often you can use similar elements that you've got on a 5x7 and use them on your A5 because it's not actually that much different. So yeah, so that is those three there. And obviously 5x7s, I use them all the time. I love a 5x7 card. So that is all of those. And then the only other rectangular one that's kind of like a more popular one is a slimline card. Now, these do vary because obviously you do have DL size cards as well. And I don't think this one is a DL. I think this is just a slimline. So this one measures, and I've written it down, it's 105 by 210 millimeters, which is about 4 1/4 by 8 3/8. And so that is that much taller than a 5x7. And obviously it's a lot narrower. So it's more like, it's even narrower than your, oh, it's almost like an A2, US A2 width. So that is your rectangular, the most popular rectangular cards, I would say. You also have 4x6s, which is similar to an A6. It's not quite, yes, it's slightly taller and not quite as wide as an A6, but a 4x6 is similar to that. So that is your rectangular cards. Now, if we move on to square cards, and I have by no means, as I said, done an exhaustive list. There are also 4x4 cards, which I haven't got an example of here. I have got some, but they're in seal packs, and I really couldn't bother to get them out. But 4x4 are basically 4 inches by 4 inches, so they would be approximately that size. So from there, so sort of like that would be a 4x4. So 4x4 cards. Obviously, you have 5x5s. This one is a bit of a weird one. This was one that I think, I can't remember if it was Do Crafts used to make, and this is a 5 1/4 by 5 1/4, which I think is a really weird size. But anyway, 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. You will also quite often find when you're looking for 6x6 cards that you find packs that say 6x6 cards and envelopes. If you see that on a packaging, then make sure you get a ruler out and measure it, because I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10 those cards are going to be 5 3/4, which is what this is. These are 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. So yeah, just watch out for that. So if you want a 6x6 card, make sure you measure them before you buy them. If you're buying them online, check the details of the description, because there's so many times I've ended up buying 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 cards when I've actually wanted 6x6. So double check that. And then this one here is an 8x8, which, as you can see, is enormous. So those are the most popular square cards. Now, as I said, there are other versions you can do. There are other things. You could have a 7x7 as well. That's another semi-popular card. For us in the UK, it costs quite a lot to send an 8x8. So I tend to stick to 6x6 and 5x7s. And even with the 6x6, I have to be careful. And I think, in fact, the 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 is better because the envelope is 6x6. And I think that fits better through the little posting guide thing. So just bear that all in mind if you're posting things. But yeah, so that is that for cards. And then when we talk about card weights, I've got a selection here. So I went through my stash and I thought I had some pattern papers that were 120, but it turns out I don't. But anyway, I think I'll probably long pass those on. But anyway, if we start with the lowest, which is, I mean, the lowest is really 80 to 100 GSM. And that's kind of like a general common paperweight, which is mainly used for like printer and copier paper. But you can sometimes find pattern papers like this one. This is 100 GSM. And the ones, my Amazon paper pads, they come out at 100. And so they are quite thin, but they're not too thin that if you, like when I use Yoo-hoo glue with this, it's fine. So 100, I would say, is your minimal weight. But with regards to mats and layers and, you know, having pattern papers, then I would say this is kind of like the lowest you want to go. And it's difficult to show you weight on a video because it's kind of more about feel, but you can kind of see how easily that's bending. And you can kind of flick through nice and easy. So yeah, so that's your 100 GSM. Then if we go from like 100 to 140, which I don't have an example of here, because this one is 150. So 100 to 140 is a better quality paper, and it's usually available with like a woven or textured effect. It works well in most projects, from like letterheads to insert sheets. So it's just a little bit heavier, They're just a little bit more, you know, weighty. Then if we move on to, so if I get one of these pieces out. So this is actually 150. So this, as you can see, it's got a bit more, it's still bendable. Like I wouldn't use this as a card blank, but it's a bit more weighty. It's got more of a, you know, chunk to it. And it's got a decent weight. I think 150 is between 140 and 160 is my kind of preferable for pattern papers. But yeah, I mean, I have gone down to 120, and as I said, my Amazon ones are 100, so you can use any of them. And I have to say that sometimes the lower weight papers are actually better, especially if you have lots and lots and lots of layers. Like some of the pillar cards that we do, you know, like for example, the star card that I've done recently. This one here, for example, if you were putting pattern papers on here, I mean, this is, you want quite a decent weight of, you know, base card. So if you're putting pattern papers on all of that and then squashing it, if you think how many layers you've got there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 layers of card. Yeah, and then you're putting on 150 GSM pattern paper. That's a lot of card. This already feels quite heavy. So imagine putting, you know, decent weight. So if you're using 100 GSM on that kind of card, then at least then you're not adding that much weight to it. So that's what I would say. Just bear that in mind, depending on what card you're making. If you're just making a normal open shut card, then something like this, absolutely fine. So you're not many layers, absolutely fine. So yeah, so that's 150 GSM. Then I've got this pad and it says it's 180 GSM, but it does vary. So you can just feel it as you go through. So these coloured pieces are 180, and they actually feel more flimsy than that 150 that I've just used. So I don't know whether they take an average for this, but for me that feels less than the 150 I've literally just touched. But then you've got these ones which are like glittery, and these are definitely a lot sturdier. If I'm trying to do this here and I'm doing this here, you can see how flexy that is. That is not very flexy at all. So these are definitely a bit heavier. So I would say these are probably about your 180 actually. I would say that's probably about 180, and these are definitely less than that. So yeah, just be careful when you buy, as I say, like multi-packs like this, because that, you can see how easily they flick, and then when you get to that one, it doesn't flick as easy. So just sort of check things, and this is why I like to buy things in person rather than online, because you don't really know. I like to feel them and see what they're actually like. So this is like 180 GSM. So anything from 150 to up to probably about 224 is generally considered as a low weight card, but it's suitable for general use and should work fine in most printers. So if you want to print on this kind of paper, you should be able to print on it, hopefully. And it's suitable for flyers, handouts, and also obviously mat and layering. This is quite good for mats, I find. Obviously, this is what I bought this for, because again, it's not too thick for mats. If you put a thinner paper on top of that, it's not going to bulk you up too much, but it's not quite, you know, making a card blank out of a card base. So yeah, so that's 180 GSM. Then most first edition paper pads, if not all first edition paper pads, are 200 GSM, and you'll find this quite a bit with double-sided paper pads. Quite often they are 200, and I actually find this weight really good. So these are, you know, these are quite, there's a good, you know, weight on that. And I would say you can even use these. So I would use something like this for this kind of card. I would say it's the lowest you can use, but because you've got so many layers, and also these dimensions are not that wide. Like if you had like a big expanse like this, then that would be too flimsy. But where you've got smaller, you know, dimensions, it works okay. So yeah, I also have made these into boxes and things. But if you're putting like mats and layers on the top as well, then it's fine. So 200 it isn't too bad. And I think as well, it helps with them being printed both sides, because I know with my Amazon pads, the Holly Sprigs one that I first bought out and Nordic Lights, they are only printed on one side, and they're definitely flimsier than the paper pads that then followed, where they were printed on both sides, and they're definitely more sturdy. So obviously the ink does help. But yeah, 200 GSM. I do like a 200 GSM card, and that's why I do like first edition. And also you'll find with first edition ones where you've got any kind of like glitter or kind of texture, like the linen texture. I don't think it's got it in this pad, but some of them had like linen textures, or they have like, you know, different, I don't know, spot UV or whatever. They tend to be a bit thicker again. So 200 GSM, really good. I find it a good all-round card, to be honest. So then anything from a 224 up to a 300 GSM is considered to be like a medium to heavy range of card. And quite often it's available in like a woven or textured effect. It works best when some rigidity or feel of strength and quality is required. So it can be used for like card blanks, menus, business cards, or wedding stationery. So this pad here, which is another Craft Sensations one, this is actually 230 GSM, and it is a good weight. So, and it's difficult. I mean, it's quite, to the hand, it feels a little bit thicker than your 200, but to be honest, you could pick it up and think, you know, there's not much difference. But yeah, again, I would use this to make card blanks out of. It is on the flimsier side, and it depends on the card blank, but some card blanks I would definitely use it for. It's just a nice, you know, card. And as I said, if this was printed both sides, that would make it even more sturdy. But it's a good, you know, it's a good kind of weight. I would say if you just wanted to use this as a pattern paper, then you need to make sure you're either not using a mat or your mat is a lot thinner, because otherwise you could run into problems. It depends on the, as I say, it all depends on how many layers you've got, but yeah, it's a nice, it is a good weight card. So I would say that's your kind of, you know, for pattern papers, that's probably the thickest you really want to go. Then you've also got a 300 GSM and above, which I don't have an example of here. I think I probably do have, I think I've got some coloured card that's a 300. Okay, so I managed to find some 300. So this is premium glitter card, and this is 300, and it really is thick. Like, at the bend, you see how much. I don't know if you can see, again, it's difficult on screen, but that is way more difficult to kind of bend and stuff than, you know, than the one I was just using. And so yeah, so I tend to find, not always, again, you do get glittered cards that are like, you know, thinner than this, but these are a good weight. And also the Dovecraft also did do some doubles, and I think they still do some double-sided glitter cards, and they are, I think they're either 300 or slightly over 300, but they're really weighty. But again, this sort of thing, you can make a box out of this, happily make a box out of this. And this, anything from 300 up is considered a heavier end of the card range, and you kind of use this kind of GSM when real strength is needed. So full range of uses, from like presentation box up to like backing board, you know, so you really do, it's a really good weight of card to use if you're constructing something that needs a bit of oomph to it. Then this is the kind of thing you want. And you know, you can get white card in this. I think I have somewhere got some coloured, maybe pearlized card in this. In fact, I think my offcuts, my Centura Pearl cards, I think they were 300. So whenever you see me use those, I think they're 300. But yeah, they're thicker, but it just means that if you're then going to be using that for cards with layers, I'm going to bring this one back in again because it's a good example, then this would be a nightmare with 300 GSM. This would be an absolute nightmare. It would be so thick and so difficult to manage. So you do have to really consider what it is you're making, kind of, you know, what kind of thickness you need. And after a while, you kind of get a feel of, you know, what it is that you need to do. After you've been doing it a few years, you kind of get, you know, and making mistakes, you kind of do get to know what kind of card, you know, you need. And you can also kind of guess after a while, you kind of get, so you can actually guess, you know, the weights of cards just by kind of feeling them. So as I said, it's definitely not an exhaustive list of different card sizes and weights, but just to give you a bit of an idea as to, you know, what kind of card sizes there are out there, what kind of weights of card there are out there, what kind of uses you use things for. So yes, I just thought I'd do a quick little rundown, and hopefully this has been helpful. Please let me know in the comments what you think, what card sizes you use, what's your most popular card size that you use, why you use that size, what you think about weights, what kind of weights you use of paper and card for various things. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, and other than that, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss a video, and we'll see you again for the next one. Bye.